What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down what happened with Nvidia's earnings. That's very important for the markets and what you should be watching for as time goes on, as NIO is up over 10% for the day. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30, and the offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, as far as NIO is going, I just want to mention that right now we're looking quite promising as we're seeing some buyers returning, trying to push the share price right back up. And so far, it's doing a good job. We got some good news that came out and also Nvidia's earnings. So let's talk about these factors at least for now. So the first thing I want to mention is that the ET9 was very successful at tackling a lot of problems. This was going through a lot of tests and they're doing relatively well. So that's a good piece of news. On top of that, we also have more good news coming out in anticipation of their growth. We saw many of their competitors announcing new models in the SUV business, and we saw a lot of Chinese tickers run quite a bit. This was having a ripple effect on NIO, so lots of good Chinese news has helped this. Not to mention the fact that we just had Nvidia's earnings. So let's talk about what happened with Nvidia's earnings, and I'll talk about the share prices. Just keep in mind that Nvidia announced their earnings, and they had very, very good reports. The revenue was at $39.3 billion above expectations. That's a 78% increase year over year. And then that's well above what we were expecting. Not to mention the fact that they ended up beating when it comes to their EPS. That was also a very, very nice beat. Very awesome news to see them beating on earnings. And then on top of this, we're going to be looking for a nice amount of growth as well. Revenue guidance for the first quarter of the fiscal 2025 it's basically showing $43 billion is what we're expecting, plus or minus 2%, which is still above what Wall Street was expecting. Very, very good piece of news. They also ramped up their massive scale production of the Blackwell AI supercomputers, achieving billions of dollars in sales in the first quarter. That's awesome news as we're seeing Blackwell absolutely crushing it, and their supercomputers are showing lots of signs of high demand. So good earnings and then good guidance is what's helping the share price. Looking at some charts, just know that for tomorrow, we have Norwegian Cruise Line and then Dell announcing earnings. But today we just got Nvidia and a couple more. So let's talk about some charts. Revenue is up about 114% to about $130.5 billion. That's the result for the entire year. Not to mention the fact that their gross margins are at about that 75% area. That's another increase year over year. Operating income is up 147% to about $81.5 billion. And we're seeing nice increases in their overall EPS, revenue, and etc. This is for the full year. You can actually see their fiscal summary right over here. Lots and lots of growth. The only thing that came a little short, I would say, is like their gaming revenue. That was a little bit short. But besides that, I would say they had very, very good margins, if anything. That's looking quite good. Look at their data centers. The revenue is also up about 93% for those, continuing to see insane growth. The strong year on year was showing sequential growth, driven by the demand for their accelerated computing platform. Good news on that end. Their data centers are continuing to grow. We're seeing good margins. They're maintaining decent margins as they're scaling. So that's still very, very good news. Awesome stuff, if anything. And then they also mentioned that the demand for Blackwell is extraordinary. AI is evolving beyond perception, and generative AI is into reasoning. They've designed Blackwell for this moment. Very, very awesome news is that's scaling upwards. This chart also shows their different sectors of revenue, such as like their automotive revenue. This is also up quite a bit. And finally, the big thing worth mentioning is the fact that their overall revenue comes from the data center revenue that's making a bigger percentage as that's continuing to grow. We're seeing gaming revenue a little bit weaker, at least for January of 2025. But like I said before, still a very, very big increase, and it's still looking quite promising. So, in my opinion, even if the margins came down just a little bit, they're still on a very, very strong uptrend. And then you also have to consider the fact that even though gaming revenue could be down just a little bit, not the end of the world, we're still doing quite well. Heading into tomorrow, it's going to be Thursday, February 27th. Keep in mind that we have a lot of data coming out. 1 hour before the market was, we have the GDP numbers coming out. We're expecting the GDP growth rates to be around 2.3%. And then we also have initial jobs claims, but the big thing is going to be our GDP numbers, so we'll see what they lead to. Then we have a bunch of Fed speakers like Hammack, Harker, and a bunch of others giving speeches. So keep that in mind. The main thing is going to be our GDP numbers in the morning. Now, besides that, we also happen to have some news from Donald Trump. Trump has made an announcement that he wants to once again increase tariffs on the EU by to 25% for a lot of products, especially for cars. He also he's continuing to reiterate the fact that he wants to increase tariffs in Canada and Mexico. That's why the market sold off the way it did. He did end up saying that. The market was at extreme fear, but typically when we're at these extremes, that's when the market tries to bounce. We're nearing the 125 daily moving average on the S&P 500, not to mention the fact that there is more growth that is continuing. The put to call option ratio is going up as we're seeing a little bit more put buying that's been going on, and the VIX remains neutral, so keep that in mind. With that being said, what do I see for the market as well? As far as NIO is going, we have a double bottom like structure and we're looking bullish. I would like to see this cool off on the RSI a bit to retest 4.65. Once we bounce off this, I do think we could get very close to $5 as the share price is looking bullish and we're trying to make a comeback move right here. That's some very, very good news, especially as we're seeing Li Auto entering the SUB business. Good news for them. Very, very awesome stuff. SPY, on the other hand, is very flat right now, but that depends. Is this falling wedge about to pan out? If we rally and break 599, we're looking for the 600s for this nice pump. If we're bearish, we end up losing support right here around this 590 area. We're looking for 584 to fill the gap. For now, it is favoring upside a little bit more. We're a little bit in the green right now. We're holding support, and Nvidia had very good earnings. So I'm hoping that that could help to spur in a little rally if that ends up being the case. I do lean a little bit more in favor of that, but we'll see just to be safe going into tomorrow. We had a falling wedge on the QQQ. Are we about to see a breakout from here? We're very close. We'll see if that ends up being the case. If we end up losing 506, we're looking for a dump. If this holds up, I could see an attempt to rally. Remember, Nvidia's earnings were quite strong, so we could be looking for a delayed reaction. There's an inverse head and shoulders on the Russell 2000. If we break 218, we're looking for the 220s. ES is showing some life. We're holding support so far. If we could get back above 6,000, we're looking for a push. Also, keep in mind we dumped many days in a row without much of a bounce, so I do want to lean a little bit more in favor of that. NQ, if we could try to hold above 21,000, we're going to be looking for a rebound. We're a little bit in the green right now. Looking at others, Bitcoin's flat. I want to see it hold 80,000. Nvidia right now is very flat, completely flat, and we're going to be watching to see if we get a bounce. Keep in mind, we have an inverse head and shoulders setup. We're going to likely see this thing push a bit higher. I do think it's very likely we get back up towards like the 136s. And then we'll see if we reclaim 140. If we hit 136 and fail, we could reject and make a move right back down to reject and form like a head and shoulders. But if we manage to break past 140, instead, if we break 140, then we're looking for an attempt for 150. So it depends. Can we break 140 or not? If we come short, look for rejection. If we don't, we're going to be, or if we do break it, then we're going to be looking for a bigger move. I think we push a little higher for the mid 130s for now as the most likely possibility. Tesla's very flat right now, looking very, very lackluster. We could attempt to see a small rebound, but like I said before, I do expect us to eventually come down to fill that gap around that 275 and then 250 area. Aapl, very flat. We have to see if we could hold 238. If that holds, we could see a small move back up to about 240. And we'll see what kind of reaction we get. AMD is going to react and kind of follow Nvidia. So if we do get some kind of rebound, we're looking for essentially 108. Coin has been on a downtrend. We want to see if this could reclaim essentially 216. So give this the time it needs. Amazon has an inverse head and shoulders. If we break past 217, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 220. Meta trying to bounce here. If we get back above 679, we're looking for essentially 690. For Microsoft, we're trying to break here. If we could try to hold above 400, we're looking for an attempt to bounce. There is potential if we are making higher lows, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. And then for Google, we have 175 as our main support, so we'll see if we get a rebound past 177. So we'll see how it goes. There's technically a falling wedge also starting to develop on Google. It's barely starting to show now, so that's a good sign so far. But we'll see, guys. Nvidia, it didn't really make much of a move yet, but we have to be optimistic and patient. The move could be coming later on. Also, remember, guys, the VIX is flat here, but there is the possibility of a left shoulder heading in the right shoulder. If this rejects, that could be a sign the market's going to try to push a little bit. This could be the start of a rally if Nvidia gets a nice reaction. Sometimes we get delayed reactions for Nvidia because we had very good earnings, and that could be a big factor. That this could just be a temporary move up, which could be affecting NIO and the others. So I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good day and peace out.